So cannabis helped deal with a bunch of symptoms of menopause, including hyperhidrosis, the excessive sweating that can happen. That's great. Thank you for sharing. And yes, I will share the couple of case reports that exist about cannabinoids and hyperhidrosis and the methods that doctors figured out. I'm Lex Pelger. I do canna education for CV Sciences, the makers of Plus CBD, who produce fine CBD and THC products. It's funny timing you talk about hyperhidrosis now, because at that conference in the last video that I talked about, it was Dr. Franjo Grotenhermen himself, the great German doctor who's been a huge force behind medical cannabis in Germany, and he published a case report, this case report, and he talked about it at the conference about what a difference cannabinoids made for this young man with hyperhidrosis. And I didn't realize how widespread hyperhidrosis was, that it can affect up to 5% of the population, or how difficult it can be. And you can imagine the emotional and social problems that can come from excessive sweating, and also the skin problems of certain parts of your body always being damp. It can be a very debilitating illness. Some of the treatments can include Botox, radio frequencies, lesions to cause harm to certain nerve cells so they'll stop working, or just simply cutting nerves that are going across your chest so they stop reaching the sweat glands. The problem with these various treatments is sometimes the sweating just pops up in other places. So there's no great treatment here for this debilitating excessive sweating. In this case, Dr. Grotenhermen used a mixture of CBD and THC over a couple of months to try to find the sweet spot that would work for this patient, and eventually got them to a spot where their sweating was much, much decreased and gave them a huge increase in quality of life, though it never controlled it completely. All of this makes sense because of how widespread we know the endocannabinoid system to be within the skin. This image is from a 2018 review paper, The Endocannabinoid System of the Skin, a Potential Approach. But you can see a ton of review papers at CVResearch.info, where I have a big archive of the research on the skin and the cannabinoids. But here above my head, you see that green ropey thing. That is supposed to be the sweat gland. In it, it has CB1 receptors, it has CB2 receptors, and it has TRPV1 receptors. Those are vanilloid receptors, and the vanilloid system is so intertwined with the endocannabinoid system that anandamide, the first discovered endocannabinoid, is sometimes called an endovanilloid. That's how much it interacts with the system, and this receptor channel specifically. And what we know about CBD is CBD lowers the activity of the Fa enzyme, which breaks down anandamide, meaning that if you lower the activity of that enzyme, you get more anandamide. And anandamide will be binding here to CB1, CB2, and the TRPV1 receptor. So there's a lot of ways that it is controlling and interacting here. Even though exactly what's happening is currently beyond us, we have these case reports of it working. Here is a case report also from this year. These researchers looked through the scientific record and found nothing on how to use cannabinoids for hyperhidrosis, so they had to create their own protocol. And using a mixture of THC oil and THC flowers, for this patient, they found not only a remarkable reduction in the volume of sweat produced, but also an incredible improvement to the patient's quality of life using what they call a novel, low-cost, and low-impact approach. And then finally, 2 case reports from last year, and this team focused on using just CBD. And in patient 1, they had an incredibly hard time before presentations at work, racing heart, excessive sweating. And what the team figured out is 300 milligrams of CBD an hour before the presentation, and all of those problems went away. And then eventually they realized that 25 milligrams of CBD in a full spectrum hemp extract with that little bit of THC in there, doing that twice a day was enough that this problem just stopped happening. And after a while, patient 1 stopped taking the CBD, and immediately the excessive sweating problems came back, and when they recommenced with the CBD, the problems went away again completely. Patient number 2 had autism and epilepsy and excessive sweating of the hands, and the team had tried a huge swath of medications with them, including electric stimulation of the vaginal floor, and nothing was really helping enough. Until finally they started giving the patient 50 milligrams of CBD with a little bit of THC each day, and that was what solved the problem for them. as a number of these case reports note, this is probably happening to a lot more people than go to the doctor for it, especially with how often it happens in menopause. And so that's why I wanted to share something about the ability of CBD and THC to be a low risk and low cost approach that could potentially help with this problem. If you have a story like this, we'd love to hear it, and please feel free to reach out with any questions as well.